From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. First, the headlines. U.S. military confirms Muslim scientists' Meteor finding. Biden urged to fight like hell for global COVID funds. Pakistani court sentences 88 for lynching. At least 6 killed in Kabul school blasts. 16 Palestinian journalists held by Israel. Robots to help Muslim pilgrims at Saudi holy sites. Our top story tonight. Researchers have discovered the first known interstellar meteor to hit Earth, according to a recently released United States Space Command document. An interstellar meteor is a space rock originating from outside the solar system. The meteor crash-landed along the northeast coast of Papua New Guinea on January 8, 2014. Its discovery was a surprise to Muslim scientist Amir Siraj, who identified the object as an interstellar meteor in a 2019 study he co-authored as a student at Harvard University. Siraj searched through NASA's Center for Near-Earth Object Studies database to find interstellar objects. Within days, he identified the meteor moving at a high speed of about 28 miles per second relative to Earth, which moves at around 18.6 miles per second. Islamophobia in U.S. public schools is an ongoing concern, according to a recent report by the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR. The group's survey of 700 Muslim students in California schools found high levels of bullying, harassment, and discrimination by peers and adults, including teachers. Nearly half of the students reported being bullied for being Muslim. That is over twice the reported national average of 20%. Amr Shabeik, civil rights managing attorney for CAIR's California chapter, said Muslim students of all ages have been ostracized and mistreated. In the past, students were targeted because of their faith and wrongful association with 9/11 and other acts of terrorism, he said. Schools often lacked preventative and reporting measures and insufficient training for educators on how to mediate or de-escalate such bullying, he added. CAIR is working with Delaware's Capital School District to provide sensitivity training after an anti-Muslim bullying incident. A 14-year-old Muslim middle school student in the district reported bullying by her teacher and classmates. The student said they targeted her for fasting and wearing a head covering during Ramadan. CAIR Philadelphia and the Islamic Society of Central Delaware plan to provide sensitivity training for district faculty and staff. The groups will also conduct listening sessions with Muslim students in May. Ahmed Tekeliolu, Outreach and Education Director for CAIR Philadelphia, said his office has received numerous reports of anti-Muslim harassment in schools. Surveys of students found bullying by teachers and administrators continues to be prevalent, he said. A Virginia mosque has been vandalized for the second time in 6 months. Authorities said the West End Islamic Center in Glen Allen, a northern suburb of the capital Richmond, was targeted by vandals Saturday afternoon. Police said the damage includes a smashed window, overturned tables and chairs, and graffiti. Ibrahim Hooper, National Communications Director for the Council on American Islamic Relations, called on law enforcement agencies to take the crime seriously. He told Andalu Agency the previous act of vandalism happened in the fall. It also included physical damage to the mosque and graffiti. Hooper said it is more concerning that this latest vandalism occurred during the holy month of Ramadan. Anti-war protesters in New York gathered Monday against the use of nuclear weapons and fossil fuels. They gathered near the Federal Plaza and marched down to Wall Street carrying banners and chanting slogans. Police arrested some of them who blocked the roads. On Monday, a U.S. federal judge struck down the COVID-19 mask mandate for public transportation imposed by the Biden administration. Judge Catherine Kimball Mizell of the Middle District of Florida said the mask mandate exceeds the statutory authority of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The mandate requiring masks on airplanes, subways, trains, buses, taxis, and all other public transportation was recently extended until May 3rd amid a rise in cases. Major U.S. airlines and several Republican lawmakers had called for an end to the mask mandate. With the latest ruling, the Transportation Security Administration, which runs security at airports, will no longer enforce the mask mandate. On Monday, the White House announced it will convene a second global COVID-19 summit next month. A leading public health advocate urged U.S. President Joe Biden to fight like hell for congressional funding to combat the ongoing pandemic. The U.S., Belize, Germany, Indonesia, and Senegal collectively are hosting the summit. They said the May 12th virtual conference will redouble our collective efforts to end the acute phase of the COVID-19 pandemic and prepare for future health threats. Last month, the U.S. House of Representatives slashed $5 billion in proposed global pandemic response funding from an omnibus spending bill. The money was to help the administration carry out its national COVID-19 preparedness plan. On Monday, a Pakistani court sentenced 6 men to death and dozens more to prison terms, ranging from 2 years to life for the slaying of a Sri Lankan factory manager. The December 3rd attack in the city of Sialkot caused outrage when a vigilante mob lynched Priyantha Diyawadana, who was accused of blasphemy. Then Prime Minister Imran Khan called it a day of shame for Pakistan. Few issues are as galvanizing in Pakistan as blasphemy. Even the slightest suggestion of an insult to Islam can incite protests and lynchings. Prosecutors said 88 of 89 people on trial for Diyawadana's murder had been convicted. 16 Palestinian journalists are being held in Israeli prisons, an Arab human rights group said on Sunday. The Beirut-based Journalist Support Committee said 8 journalists have already been slapped with jail terms by Israeli authorities. 4 journalists are being held under Israel's policy of administrative detention, while 4 others are being held under interrogation. The administrative detention policy allows Israeli authorities to hold a prisoner without charge or trial. Sunday marked Palestinian Prisoners' Day, commemorated each year on April 17th to highlight the plight of detainees in Israeli jails. Israel holds roughly 4,500 Palestinians in its prisons, including 34 women, according to Palestinian figures. The committee documented 174 Israeli violations against Palestinian journalists this year, including detention and using them as human shields. Al-Aqsa Mosque is under attack again by Israeli forces and illegal Jewish settlers. Here's a report by Saleha Farouk.
The third holiest place for Muslims is called Al-Aqsa Mosque. That literally means the furthest mosque, and it is unfortunately becoming a reality for Muslims living just around it. They can't get to Al-Aqsa easily. They need permits by Israelis to enter the mosque. Yes, they need a permit. A permit to enter their own mosque in their own land. This is a part of an apartheid system to control Palestinians. Permits are often denied. Once you have a permit, then you must go through extreme scrutiny. Checkpoints to checkpoints. That is how the whole occupied Palestine is like. Checkpoints to checkpoints. It was a beautiful dawn at Al-Aqsa on April 15th. Muslims had just finished offering their Fajr prayers. A peaceful demonstration by a few hundred Palestinians is a ritual in the occupied land to keep their demand for freedom alive. Instead of letting their demonstration be over, fully armed Israeli soldiers in massive numbers invaded the mosque. They wanted to clear the mosque for illegal Jewish settlers, ruthlessly striking and beating whoever came in their way. They entered the mosque shooting stun grenades, tear gas, and rubber-coated steel bullets directly at the Muslims as some were still praying. 150 Muslims were injured as the Israelis tried to clear the mosque for Jewish settlers who wanted to make an animal sacrifice there. Muslims resisted with the only weapon that Palestinians have, little rocks. 400 were arrested. The mosque was occupied by Israel in 1967. Since then, this calm and peaceful place has been attacked often. A historic 12th century pulpit was burned down in 1969 when Dennis Rohan, a Christian Zionist, attacked it. Initially, the head rabbis in 1967 had asked the Jews not to pray there, since it is not clear where the historic Temple Mount was. But now, illegal Jewish settlers are fully supported by the Israeli military as they enter Al-Aqsa, while Muslim Palestinians are beaten to leave to make room for the illegal settlers. Even the Al-Aqsa neighborhood is being cleared of Muslims.
You are stealing my house!
And if I don't steal it, someone else is going to steal it.
For now, Muslim Palestinians are busy doing a major cleanup of Al-Aqsa, the third most revered mosque for Muslims. This is Saleha Farouk reporting for Muslim News.
After the break, we'll share how robots are helping pilgrims at Saudi holy sites. This and more news stories from around the globe, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, walking up and down the world's largest refugee camps. I met Sister Fatima. Well, I'm calling her a sister. She was just a teenage girl, my granddaughter's age. Her parents were slaughtered by the Burmese military, and she was dragged by the Burmese soldiers to their hut, and all night long she was violated. She lost consciousness. When she regained, and in the morning and soldiers were themselves away, she ran and hid in a vegetable patch. Some people saw her, gave her clothes, and took her 4-day-long walk to Bangladesh. Who will speak up for her? Who will stand up for her if not you and I? It's our responsibility. It's our duty, brothers and sisters in humanity. And that's why I like you to support Burma Task Force. I'm a volunteer for it. But Burma Task Force is standing up to stop this genocide, violation of our sisters. You and I are free, they are not. Please stand up, work with Burma Task Force, and donate today to Burma Task Force. Together, we can do it. Assalamu alaikum.
Billboards are popping up all over the country with an...
Our neighbors don't realize that Muslims are absolutely opposed to ISIS. Salam. My name is Abdul Malik Mujahid. I'm an imam in Chicago.
16 shots! No peace! No justice! No peace!
So how do we bring up the energy which can really have an impact on the world? You need to build bridges of understanding among people, and we need to have America moving forward. That lesson learned brought the strength of humanity to America, which is the diversity.
Mujahid Talks, only on Muslim Network TV. Faithfully connected.
Assalamu alaikum everyone, it's your brother Zain Bika from South Africa. One of the first educational programs ever produced for Muslim children was the ever popular Adam's World series. The colorful and comical Muslim puppets stole the heart of a generation. Sound Vision will be releasing brand new episodes of Adam's World with the launch of a Adam's World app. Subscribers will enjoy new Adam's World episodes as they are released, as well as all the classic episodes of Adam's World. So visit adamsworldapp.com now to learn more, subscribe and enjoy new adventures of Adam and his friends. And let's keep helping tomorrow's Muslims today. Assalamu alaikum.
It's Adam's World. Believe me, there's a lot to see. Bismillah, let's explore.
To stop this genocide, we need your help.
A new fleet of robots to help female worshippers is being deployed at Islam's holiest site, Saudi Arabian authorities said. The smart guidance robots will explain prayer rituals and Islamic fatwas in the women's section of the Great Mosque of Mecca and the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. They will also answer questions about the holy sites and allow women to communicate with scholars, according to authorities overseeing both mosques. The robots offer answers in 11 languages, including Arabic, English, Persian, Turkish, and Urdu. Worshippers can interact with them via touchscreens. Millions of Muslims journey to Mecca each year for the Hajj pilgrimage to pray at the Great Mosque, or Masjid al-Haram, Islam's holiest site. They typically also travel to the city of Medina to pray at the Prophet's Mosque, or Masjid al-Nabawi. A 20-year-old Azerbaijani university student was subjected to almost daily beatings while a prisoner of Russian forces near Mariupol, Ukraine, last month. Hossein Abdullayev was studying at Mariupol State University when Russia invaded Ukraine. He told Voice of America Russian military personnel kidnapped and held him from March 17th until April 12th at a military post west of Mariupol. Abdullayev said his captors tied his hands and covered his head so he could not see. He said he was tortured while in captivity and accused of being a Ukrainian soldier. Abdullayev said he was released after Russian Chechen commanders pardoned him for the month of Ramadan. Austrian Muslim professor Farid Hafiz, a vocal critic of the Austrian government's Islam-related policies, is still coming under fire. Hafiz was the target of Austria's largest peacetime police raids on November 2, 2020, which the higher court decided was unlawful. The regional court, which earlier allowed the raid, had issued a decision upholding the investigation against Hafiz, citing his academic work. The court sanctioned a probe of Hafiz's activities in preparation of an Islamophobia report and with the Bridge Initiative at Georgetown University. At least 6 people were killed and 11 others injured after multiple blasts hit a boys' school in Afghanistan's capital Kabul today, an official of the Taliban interim government said. The explosions targeted Abdurrahim Shahid High School, said Khalid Zadran, a Kabul police spokesman. Security forces reached the site and launched an investigation into the attacks, he added. The blasts occurred when the students were coming out of their morning classes. The emergency NGO in Kabul, which provides free health care to Afghan civilians, said on Twitter that the hospital received 10 people wounded in the explosions. It said all of the injured are between 16 and 19 years old, and one victim was already dead on arrival. There was no immediate claim of responsibility for the attack. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Imam Malik Mujahid. Brothers and sisters, we all watch the Allahu Akbar lady from India. She's amazing, isn't she? She's neither compromising her hijab nor her education. She's standing tall. We must stand with her. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect her. But it is not just hijab, brothers and sisters. Indian Muslims are facing genocide.
Genocide that we face in India is not a new phenomenon. India has had several genocides.
They are attacked every day. Even the Indian government admits there has been more than 1,800 organized attacks on Muslims, but they call it riot. 660 people are hanged to death in India, lynched in broad daylight, sometimes just because they were accused of eating beef. Yes, accusation of eating beef can kill a human being in India. We cannot remain silent, can we? Alhamdulillah, OIC has spoken, that is good, but why in the world United Nations is silent? The UN has a responsibility to protect. It has a duty to prevent genocide. Sisters and brothers, we must stand with Indian Muslims and other minorities. We are free, they are not. We are not attacked, they are under attack day and night. Let's do our job. I have signed this UN petition. I ask you to sign it now. Thank you so much.
We are Justice for All. Headquartered in the heart of downtown Chicago, Justice for All is a global humanitarian initiative dedicated to raising awareness for human rights concerns impacting vulnerable minority groups. Our diverse team of staff and volunteers, led by Imam Malik Mujahid, work tirelessly to help Justice for All achieve their goals. We promote policies that protect religious freedom, address the root causes of mass displacement, and recognize the plight of refugees and forced migrants. Together, we can continue to stand up for justice. Justice for all.
Welcome back. Let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid for our in-depth analysis segment. Over to you, Imam Malik.
Thank you, Samana. Urban League has issued a report using data and analysis from research partner, the Brennan Center for Justice. The report says there is a plot to destroy U.S. democracy through gerrymandering, voter separation, election sabotage, and voter intimidation. To discuss that with us is Reverend Hagler. He's a senior minister, Plymouth Congregational United Church of Christ. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Reverend.
It's good to be back with you again.
Tell us, is there who is plotting to destroy the U.S. democracy?
Well, it's the same forces that have been engaged in that mission since before the Civil War, trying to protect business interests and trying to protect the interests of white supremacy. When you look at the fact is at the end of the Civil War, you had a period in this country that was called Reconstruction, which was a brief period where people were able to vote, men were able to vote, and you elected a number of black representatives and senators and governors to places where the black population was significant. And it was through intimidation and the rewriting of laws and the implementation of poll tax and terrorism that allowed them to basically turn back the clock and remove folks from office. And therefore, again, you didn't have someone elected to federal office like the Congress until 1921. So basically at the end of Reconstruction until 1921, with Oscar DePriest being elected as congressperson from Chicago. And he was the only one for a long period of time. And so you have those same forces today using the same old tactics of intimidation, of putting in place laws that prevents people from voting, that you criminalize people who engage in trying to get people registered and get them to the polls, or aid the elderly in being able to vote, or making sure that the disabled can vote. Folks who are basically cutting out the district and electoral boundaries so that it is constructed in such a way that one group of people have the majority from one party and basically can lord over everybody else. And so it's the same old pattern of hatred, racism, and white supremacy.
You use the word intimidation and terrorism to define that. Could you elaborate on that a little more?
Sure. I mean, I think the key way to point that out earlier, and so, we realize that nothing really changes in terms of history. It's tweaked, it's changed a little bit, it's modified, but it tends to be the same thing. When you had one person, one vote doing Reconstruction, it was basically groups like the Red Shirts and the Klan and other white supremacist groups that used guns and basically threatened and lynched people for going to the polls, and therefore putting in place a reign of terror. And so here you have today, the criminalization, like I said, of people who may aid in other people being able to vote, may aid in terms of registering people, may aid in terms of making sure the elderly or disabled can be enfranchised, to criminalize it, to make it felony. That's the kind of terrorism that exists. One thing that is reminds us of the fact that the forces that always seem to be talking about democracy don't want democracy at all. They want to basically be able to control who votes and what they vote for. Unfortunately, that's not democracy.
Reverend, we know that Republicans are behind that. Have they always been behind voter suppression?
Well, that's an interesting historical question in North America. Because if you recollect, the Republican Party was the party of Lincoln. And the Republican Party was the party of abolition of slavery. The Democratic Party in those days leading up to the Civil War and in Reconstruction, the Democratic Party really represented Southern interests. That's why, the word Dixiecrat sticks around. And it was really under the Civil Rights Movement that the Democratic Party was really threatened by the inclusion of Black and civil rights issues and coming up from the South, like Fannie Lou Hamer and the Mississippi Freedom Party. And it basically began to create an exodus of white Southern interests from the Democratic Party. And it was really solidified under Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, where those forces that were basically segregationists and in the Democratic Party went into the Republican Party and seized control of that. Reagan signaled it by going down to Philadelphia, Mississippi to announce his presidency. It's not a major media market, but it's where 3 civil rights workers were killed. And so that was to solidify the entrance of these more racist ideologies into the Republican Party and to solidify it as that kind of party forever.
So we know now Republican Party and red states are mostly passing laws which are distorting democracy. But what forum these people sit down and plot against democracy?
Well, there's a whole lot of places. I mean, there's places like what's called a legislative exchange, where people actually sit down and create boilerplate legislation. And invite people to conferences and in hopes that they would go back to their local states and introduce a form of a boilerplate. I mean, so it is really coming out of very conservative places like Heritage Foundation, other places like that, where these legislative initiatives are created, are framed, and people are briefed on it, trained in it, and given boilerplates in which to go back to their states. I mean, so that's a part of what's going on. It's an orchestrated effort. It's an orchestrated effort state by state.
Do Democrats have any strategy to stop that?
Well, I think that's one of the issues, is that the Democrats need to create the kind of strategy and to sort of get out of this Pollyannish perspective. I mean, it's a war that's going on in this country. It's a war over values. It's a war over ideology. It's a war over race. You have a number of places that have seized some territory, like when you talk about things like One America News. One America News is just basically white supremacist news, and Fox News and the personalities that are there, like Sean Hannity. I mean, those folks are not engaged in the dissemination, the collection and the dissemination of news, but they're engaged in the construction of propaganda and ideology that tends to push people into places of hatred and to give people myths in which to operate upon and therefore destroy the integrity of democracy. And so those things are really a threat because they pose as media. They pose as news. It's not news at all. It's the dissemination of mythologies, this dissemination of lies, distortion of history, and distortion of facts. But it parades as news.
Reverend, is this a losing battle to try to restore the democracy so everyone can vote?
Well, it's not a losing battle. I mean, that's what some folks would hope, that we would think that it was a losing battle and that we would just throw up our hands and walk away. Issues around, the what brought King and other folks to Washington, D.C. in 1963 was to pass the Voting Rights Act, which was to put in place protection of the right to vote. Here we are today. We are at that place again where we need to put in place the protection of the right to vote. It just shows you how you can take some giant steps forward. And if you're not paying attention and if you're not vigilant, it can be eroded away so easily. And so here we are again having to fight this battle around voting rights, this battle around who can vote, under what circumstances can people vote. And the fact is that from we've seen in this last presidential election that the ideology around fraud, the lies around fraud was the fact that people voted that they felt had no right to vote, which were people of color, Black people, people who didn't vote for Donald Trump. As far as they were concerned, all of those people did not have a right to vote, and therefore it was fraudulent from their perspective.
Reverend, what advice do you have for those white folks who see it's a survival game for them? And there is some truth to that in a way that, people non-white are going to be a plurality or a majority in this country, not on the same page, but numerically, demographically speaking. So they're not producing many children, but they want to hold on to power. So democracy doesn't quite work in that way, does it? So what's your advice for white folks who are scared of you and me?
Well, the thing is that they need to give up the lie. When I say the lie, is that people of color are not interested in hurting them. People of color are not interested in dispossessing them. And they need to embrace what America has really come to mean. And America has meant that people have come from all over the world, speaking many different languages, having many different faith traditions, and having and aspiring to basically live in security and peace and raise their family. And that means that it is diverse. And it will get more diverse. It's not going to get less diverse. So as somebody would say, so get over it. Get over it and recognize that you live in a country and an environment that now its history is built upon this idea of weaving together the threads that make a cloth colorful and bright and strong.
Well, thank you so much, Reverend Hagler, for being with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Back to you, Samana.
Thank you, Imam Mujahid. That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.